Plot Twisters.
This is a podcast where we take movies and twist the plot to see if we can make them better, and if not, more bloodthirsty.
At the moment, we're talking about teen movies from the 80s.
On this episode, The Lost Boys from 1987.
I'm Emma, and I like to read the TV guide. You got the TV guide, you don't need the TV.
I'm Anders, and the one thing about living in Santa Carlo I never could stand, it's all the damn vampires.
I've thought this to myself many times, actually. The things that you are looking for when you're looking for somewhere to live, right? Number one, good access to schools. Number two, probably nice to have, good grocery stores nearby.
Sure.
Parks.
Transport, you want a bus station, train station, no vampires.
Usual things.
Access to the beach, probably not vampires. And everything's fine. Good houses, good schools, no vampires. Ooh, Santa Carlo. Good schools.
Good schools. Nice parks. Good beach.
Great train station.
Vampires, though.
Also vampires. Hella lots of vampires in Santa Carlo.
It's no good for me.
Yeah. Ooh, we're back in vampire territory. Are you scared, Emma? Are you scared?
So scared.
No, are you scared? So scared?
Am I scared? So scared. Vampires, terrifying. Hey, yep. Can I just say before you do the recap?
Sure.
I thought this was going to be about Peter Pan. The Lost Boys and Peter Pan.
Isn't, I'm sure, hey, listen.
It's not about that.
I'm sure it's a reference. I'm sure that's
a
reference.
Probably a reference.
It's a reference because, everything's a reference about everything. Nothing's original.
Everything is just copying something else.
Copying something else, exactly. We're a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox in our lives. No, this movie is not about a whimsical, smock-wearing pixie who takes children from Britain away to a magical land just to the left of a star. No. This movie is it's straight up about vampires.
Mm-hmm. The
The Lost Boys. Movie from 1987 that I had never seen until 1980 yesterday, right? And let me just tell you, it was a real trip. It was actually a trip and a half because A, 80s movies about vampires with cool music, and B, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, and Mr. 24 himself.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland. We're all in this movie.
With peroxide hair. Woo.
Oh, didn't he look so cool?
He looks so cool. I was loving it. I wonder if he looks back and goes like, "Oh, I look like an idiot." But it's like, no, Kiefer,
no.
You didn't. You looked fantastic.
Hey, Kiefer, you didn't look like an idiot, okay? Right? You looked hot as. You looked so awesome. You got the slick back hair. You wear cool leather jackets. You rode a motorcycle and you were a vampire and it was 1987, okay? Right? Let me give you 24 compliments about how cool you looked. I already gave you a few and I don't have time for the rest. You looked cool, okay, Kiefer? As for Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, rest in peace, he looked pretty cool. It was cool. He played a youngman because he was a youngman. And Corey Feldman played himself, but with a weird, deep voice that I didn't understand. I liked it.
You know who these guys are, then? I know who Kiefer Sutherland was, but I don't know the other two.
Are you unfamiliar with the Coreys from the 80s?
Uh-huh.
Oh, my gosh. Guess what? I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, but in the next few episodes of this podcast, you will discover who Corey Feldman and Corey Haim are, okay? Spoiler alert, the Goonies. But also the 80s. And also, they were cool, right?
Okay. The Freddie Prinze Jr. of the 80s,
They were the Freddie Prinze Jr., exactly. But to quote the Irish band The Thrills from one of their singles, whatever happened to Corey Haim, right? Whatever happened to my friend Corey Haim? He died of pneumonia in 2010.
Oh.
Too dark? Well, too bad, because this movie's about vampires, so it is a dark movie, okay? And it stars somebody who died. The Lost Boys, 1987. Do you want to recap?
I do.
All right, here's what happens. So, at the beginning of this movie, you have a family of two brothers and a mom, okay? The brothers are Sam and Michael, played by Corey Haim and Jason Patric. And their mom, Lucy, who's played by Diana Weist, you'll recognize her from, she was the mom from Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, two boys and their mom, they're moving to California. Why? The mom, she got divorced from the husband, and it's a sad situation. So moving back with her dad, a.k.a. the kid's grandpa, in Santa Clara, California. They're driving in, and the mom's like, everything's going to be great in California. Isn't it going to be great? We're moving from Arizona. You'll be happy here. And the kids are like, this place looks whack. And also, I'm pretty sure this place is whack and there's vampires, right? They move into the grandpa's house. The grandpa is a weird taxidermy guy who's a weird man.
It's always a great way to like mark out your character as a bit of an oddball, isn't it? Like, oh, taxidermy.
Sure. He taxidermies animals and then puts them in the children's room because that's fine. But he's also the guy who plays the grandpa, Bernard Hughes. He was in a bunch of movies that I really like. I mean, like he was in Tron and he was in Sister Act 2, a.k.a. Back in the Habit. He's in a movie called Doc Hollywood. You ever see that? That movie rules. Oh, that movie rules. It was from 1991, so we should have watched it already, but it's too late.
Aww.
It's too late. Anyway, whatever. Forget the grandpa. They move into his house, and they're all like, California, it's going to be fine. Okay? Right off the bat, the kids meet some people. Corey Haim meets Corey Feldman and another kid who run a comic book store who are like, hey, welcome to California. We got vampires here. And he's like, for real? And they're like, yep. And then the older brother meets a bunch of vampires and also a girl that he likes. And the vampires take him to their vampire house, which is a sunken hotel underground. And they're like, you should hang with us and be one of us. And he goes, I guess so. So he drinks what he thinks is wine, but it's actually blood. And then he becomes a vampire. And then he wakes up the next day and he goes, oh no, I'm a vampire. And his brother's like, you're a vampire. I'm going to tell mom. She's going to be so mad. And then he goes, you got to help me. Don't tell mom I'm a vampire. And then he goes to his friends and goes, I didn't want to be a vampire. And they go, too bad. You are one. Sorry. Right? Meanwhile, the mom is trying to find a part-time job, but also love. And so she starts working at a record store for this guy that she likes and tries to have a bunch of dates with him, but they keep going wrong. And then the older brother goes to the younger brother, I don't want to be a vampire. And then the younger brother goes, great news. I know friends who can help us not make you not a vampire. So they come over for a big dinner. At first, the friends think, my mom's boyfriend, he's the main vampire. Because you know that thing where you have to kill the main vampire, and if you kill the main vampire, then all the vampires stop being vampires. But then they're like, maybe the guy isn't the vampire. And then they go and kill a bunch of vampires, including Kiefer Sutherland. Sorry, Kiefer. But the brother Michael's still a vampire. And they're like, dang, who's the main vampire? Spoiler alert, it's the mom's boyfriend who is the main vampire. And then they kill him. And then nobody's a vampire anymore. And also, there's a really sexy guy. The end. But also, there's a real sexy guy playing saxophone with his shirt off. And that's the movie The Lost Boys. That's the end. That's the whole movie.
What an amazing concert scene that was. The guy, the oily man.
He was so greasy. And all the kids were like vibing to it and going, he's so greasy, but he's so hot because of the saxophone and also no shirt and the long hair. Did I miss anything? Because that's pretty much the whole movie, The Lost Boys, right?
That's the whole movie. There, one very excellent bit that I liked a lot. There's a very classically 80s romance scene, which is the only thing that I can think of whenever I see anything like that is the scene in Naked Gun 2.5. Which is there's a parody romance scene which is so brilliantly done. basically that. Go and look at that on YouTube if you're over you're over 18. Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? This film.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
A very key detail that I think it's really important to mention as well is that this film is directed by Joel Schumacher, which is very
exciting.
Educate
me. Who's that? What is he
directing? Boy. Joel Schumacher. If you know him from anything, I would imagine that you probably know him from the Batman films with George Clooney in them.
Really?
Have you ever?
He directed those movies.
He did, yeah.
Oh, Clooney.
Kind of quite commonly known for not being super great. Another one that he directed, which you may have heard of, is The Phantom of the Opera.
The Phantom of the Opera. Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen the film of The Phantom?
No, of course not.
Really? You haven't seen... What? I'm so surprised. Okay.
Do you know anything about me? She's All That. Never Been Kissed, okay? And also the other rom-coms. I don't watch movies that make you think. I watch movies that make you feel, okay?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. You have made a very critical error there. The Phantom of the Opera does not make you think. It very much makes you feel.
I will watch it then. Fine.
I think you should. So basically, I think he has directed other films as well, like 8mm as well, with Nicolas Cage in it. Like,
whoa, he developed 8mm. That guy.
Yeah, he also did St. Elmo's Fire, which
I love that movie.
At some point, yeah, it's good, isn't it? I guess the best way to be fair to Mr. Schumacher is, and particularly, like I said, I hadn't seen this one before. I have seen St. Elmo's Fire before, but not this one, and
Sure.
I have seen the other ones. His style worked brilliantly in the 80s, and I think he probably should have stopped to that. Right. The style doesn't quite translate. Like, in this film, it comes across as very of the moment, very heightened, very bold, I guess. In Batman and Robin and the other one he did, which was Batman Forever.
Love that. I love that movie though.
Yes. But I think at the time it was like, what is this? You know, it's very over the top. And so, I mean, I am going to have to limit how much I talk about the Phantom of the Opera in this episode because there's so much to say about it. The Phantom of the Opera, okay, I'm trying to be succinct. The Phantom of the Opera film is a very, very interesting film because, first of all, it's a film of a musical, obviously. But it's also kind of brilliant despite being a complete misfire. Like, it's just not good, but it's also absolutely amazing, and I love it. And a lot of the reasons why is because some of the director's choices are just wild. One of the things that's really distinct about it, and that really made me laugh when I was watching this film, is like, Joel Schumacher loves a busy frame. He loves like a frame just full of props. There's so many scenes in the Phantom of the Opera where there's just so much going on that it's like really distracting. But it's also quite funny because in these films, they all have some kind of lair. Obviously, Batman has Batman's cave, and the Phantom of the Opera has his lair, and they have one in this, and it's always just like...
Sorry, I'm pretty sure it's called the Bat Cave, okay? It's not called Batman's cave.
I was doing a thing. Come on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be pedantic. It's called the Bat Cave.
You gotta correct me on Batman stuff. Yeah, so it's just very funny because in each one, it's just a very over-the-top, overdressed set. So in this, the vampires have a lair, and it really reminded me of the Phantom of the Opera thing. Awesome. It's very funny. Yeah, just very high octane, high energy, camp, emotional stuff. So I was really excited because I saw it was Joel Schumacher, and I was like, okay, great.
Right. My hot take, this is I've never seen this movie before, right? And I'm disappointed that I haven't because I've seen the VHS box of this movie like 1,000,000 times, right? This is a movie that was on the top shelf, right on Eyeline, at the video store that I used to work at for like forever, right?
Right.
This movie, I should have seen it 100 times, but I'd never seen it until this week. And and it kind of blew my mind for a bunch of reasons. One, because it's so 80s, it's hard to look at times. Like, it's like really 80s. But also, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of vampire movies. I'm not a vampire expert, right? I've seen Interview with the Vampire, and that's it. Okay?
I've seen loads of vampire movies.
I know, and you're probably going to talk about Twilight or whatever. There's probably a vampire in Twilight, right?
There's probably a vampire in Twilight.
I've never seen it. Prove me wrong, kids. Oh, you know what I have seen? That thing, that show, and What They Do in the Shadows, right? With the guys from the Flight of the Conchords. Those folks, right? And they made their own show called Vampires, What We Do in the Shadows. And I liked that because it's funny, right? My point is this. I'm not familiar with the whole vampire thing, but I liked the idea in this movie, and I enjoyed it. Spoiler alert, I enjoyed this movie. I like the idea that's like, dang, you're a vampire. I guess you're screwed. Not necessarily. If you kill the head vampire, you'll be okay. Because when I was watching this movie, and I thought two things. I thought, one, screw you, Keith Sutherland. You made the older brother Michael think that he was just hanging with the dudes, but he turned out to be a vampire, and that was not cool. And also there's a little boy that's a vampire, and I'm against children being vampires, okay? I didn't like it. I don't like kid vampires. They don't have to... Kids are little. They don't choose to be vampires. They're like, I want to watch cartoons, and you're my friend. All of a sudden, you're a vampire? That's taking advantage of kids. So what I liked about this movie was, you're vampires, but maybe you're not as long as we kill the head vampire. And then they did. I like the misdirect where they thought the new dad, right, boyfriend was the head vampire, but then he wasn't, but then he was. And as I said, I like the sweaty saxophone guy. So, I'm into this movie all in all. What were your thoughts about it, Emma? What did you like?
I didn't like it as much, I think,
okay.
as you. I thought it was good, and I respected it, and I respected what it was doing, but I didn't enjoy it much.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
I have seen a lot of vampire content.
Give me your rundown. What do you got? Vampire content. What have you seen?
Twilight, True Blood, What We Do in the Shadows,
Yep.
Dark. What's it called? Dark Shadows, the one with Johnny Depp in it. What else? So loads
Vampire
of stuff
Diaries?
to the vampire as well. I've seen Dracula, Vampire Diaries. Yeah, I've seen lots of versions of Dracula.
All right,
including the classic Hammer horror one, which is great with Christopher Lee in it.
Dracula.
It's funny what you were saying there. I think the thing is that like you have the kind of mechanics of how the vampire thing works, right? So like in this one, it's garlic is a thing, holy water is a thing, kill the head vampire. And yes, obviously I'm gonna talk about Twilight.
Obviously.
Let's just move past the cringe already, okay? So but in Twilight, all of that stuff doesn't apply, so garlic is fine, and they make jokes about it. And
why? Why?
Why what?
Twilight. Why no garlic?
Why Twilight?
Why Twilight indeed? Why are they not a thing? Garlic. Let me guess. Oh, silver bullets can't kill a werewolf either.
Yeah, so the rules don't apply in that world. But like that something sucks. Like Curse of the Were-Rabbit as well. That's another good one. So in the Curse of the Were-Rabbit,
yes.
a little were-bunny, and that one is like, yeah, it's very good. That's my favorite piece of vampire content. Yeah.
Wallace and Gromit, great.
The bun vac. Yeah. So there's like the different mechanics of like how the vampires work, so you have to kind of lay those out. And I think generally for me, I often find that films that focus on what that mechanic is don't grip me so much as ones that kind of put the mechanic to the side and focus more on the story between the characters, because I think I always gravitate towards stories that are one way or another about the people. You know, it's like the whole Jaws isn't about the shark thing. Again, it's like, yes, he needs to kill a shark. I'm not really that interested in like how he goes about doing it or what he needs to do. I'm interested in why and what the motivation is and what he learns and that kind of thing, you know? So it's like I think one of the reasons why Twilight was so phenomenally successful is because it put those things to the side, and it was actually, you know, it's just a teen romance about a boy and a girl, basically. The vampire thing was more the flavour than the core of the story. Similarly, like, I think if you look at the classic Dracula story, that's about the psychology of the narrator. So I think that's the thing for me that slightly turned me off this film. It did feel like I didn't really get to grips with who the characters were and what the character development was. I think there was a lot of opportunity to do that wasn't really capitalized on, and it was more about the mechanics of being vampires, getting the vampires, and kind of, you know, how cool they are. Like Van Helsing is another one that's an example of that, actually, where it's just like, oh, isn't it cool that I'm a vampire hunter and I'm going to go kill these vampires? But I did appreciate the aesthetic, and like Kiefer Sutherland was great, and the whole dynamic of like, we're nerds, so we know about this supernatural thing because we've read comics. I always love that whenever it appears, like, because that would so be me, and refusing to acknowledge pop culture in a supernatural thing is silly. So I loved all of that, but it was just like, I don't know who these people are, and I want to know. So that was what let it down for me.
Yeah, you always need to know, and I respect it. You need to know who are the people. Right? We go way back to, if you go back to She's All That, you needed to know who is Freddie Prinze Jr., right?
Yep.
And why is he popular? And what's his deal? And why does he care about Laney Boggs, right? And I will, you know, like, whatever, apologize for it and go like, well, you know, he's popular. What else do you need to know, right? I'll agree. If they spent less time focusing on the taxidermist grandpa and more time in just being like, who are these kids? Maybe you get the backstory you want. Maybe it's because I'm not a vampire expert, but like, this movie for me was like, oh yeah, they're vampires. Oh yeah, kill the head vampire. I didn't see the tropes of the construct of vampire being an obvious sort of, you know, plot driver. For me, I was like, oh, the older brother got tricked into being a vampire. That sucks. Oh, there's a way out of being a vampire. That's good. And the way out of it is the kids who were basically the Stranger Things kids, but from the 80s. So they were the reference point of the Stranger Things kids. Were like, I
think
books.
every movie in the 80s is the reference thing for the Stranger.
Right?
Like, we talked about Christine. There's definitely, I'm pretty sure that, you know, the guy who's the in season 3, the lifeguard guy, I'm pretty sure there's a shot of him lifted directly from Christine in that with his car.
Exactly.
I think you're right, and that maybe that's an interesting point there about the fact that I'm more used to vampire tropes meant it was less that was less, like, the set dressing was less exciting to me, because I think like it's that thing about having some kind of recognizable truth in there that you can sort of take from it, so you feel that connection with the film. I didn't feel any connection with this. I kind of, to be honest with you, I actually struggled to sort of completely pay attention to it, which is not entirely the film's fault, but I think it was just like, I kind of going, well, who's the main character here? Who am I focusing on? Who am I invested in? You know, I didn't really feel invested in any of them.
Do you remember when we watched what was that movie? It was a John Waters movie. It was set in the 80s, in the 50s or whatever. Yeah, we watched Cry Baby, right? And I could not connect with that movie.
Yeah.
I found it to be very boring and weird, and I didn't like it, right? But, you know, because this whole podcast is a ruse, and it's actually you're teaching me about movies, right? In what I like to call film therapy / hanging with my mate, right? On record that
what am I getting from this deal?
You get to be like, you're old and I'm not, and laugh. It's shot in front. You get shot in front.
That is worth it.
Right? And also, I get to introduce you to things you've never seen before. So, it's very much, it's a win-win, right? Sorry, as The Office said, it's a win-win-win. We all win, right? My point is this. This is a movie from the late 80s, predating almost every reference that you just mentioned about vampires, okay? Right? Other than the classic, Dracula from the, 30s or whatever. The point is this. I've not seen a lot of vampire movies, and in 1987, maybe a lot of people hadn't seen a lot of vampire movies, so maybe they had to explain the mechanics of vampires in that movie because it was relatively new, and or maybe the movies that you love that you think have done it better were based on this movie. That's my hot take. Huh?
Absolutely. Well, yes, no, I mean, that I think that is the thing about vampires, is that, like, there's only so much you can say about them.
They love blood.
A little interesting fact, seeing as we're on the topic of references.
Sure.
The most famous kind of vampire thing that people think about is Dracula, which is Bram Stoker. It was actually predated by a Gothic novella by an author called Sheridan Le Fanu.
Le Fanu.
Called Carmilla, and it's about a female vampire.
Ooh.
And that was one of the first vampire stories ever, because it predated Dracula by 26 years and inspired it. But people don't really know about it as much, which is interesting.
Another example of sexism in the world.
Yeah. It's about a lady. But yeah, so that then inspired Dracula, which then went on to inspire everything vampire related.
Here's the question. Why are vampires? And also, what's the deal with them?
Well, as far as I know, and I mean, I haven't done a huge amount of research, but as far as I know, they basically have come across. They have come about in folklore in like every culture in the world, independently in different ways. So you have like famous ones like Chupacabra, for example, which are like specific vampiric creatures.
Right.
But then you also just have like the idea of vampires. And it used to be that people used to think that they were like these big kind of horrible like bloated animals. But then the kind of 19th century twist on that was that they were more sophisticated and more like, the pale gentleman. And obviously Dracula had a big kind of thing, influence on that. But like if you look at something like Nosferatu, which is a sort of a Dracula ripoff, that's more of a creature. He looks like a creature, whereas Dracula is very specifically like he's an aristocrat. So there's this interesting kind of two different variants, but I guess the way that people view vampires in fiction has a lot of influence on like how people have thought about them. Although I think what's kind of happened is they've gone from being in folklore and being in like believed to exist to being very prolific in media, because like I know there were certain illnesses that people used to associate with vampirism. Like people did think it was a real thing.
Yeah.
One of the common theories is that it was a way of explaining the decomposing process of a body, because like when you're decomposing you go pale, you get bloated, things like your fingernails grow and your teeth grow, or they appear to grow, but it's actually just your skin receding.
Is shrinking. Yeah.
So a lot of the ways that people tried to explain that process was that they thought it was like evidence of vampirism, which is weird.
What's with grandma's teeth? No, it's just her skin receding. It's not her teeth.
Yeah. So
oh God.
Yeah, and then it it came out of mythology and was written into fiction, and then started as being an aristocrat thing, and that was very much an interesting sort of development of like the study of class. And then this one, like the Lost Boys, the idea that they're more wild and animalistic, like that's a very interesting discussion of vampirism that's often like it's connected with sexuality, which is the idea that it's a very sexual thing, like sucking someone's blood, particularly if you're like going in at the neck. It's like it's kind of like kissing, right, isn't it? So there's a lot of like sexuality written into there. Obviously Twilight being a very famous and popular example is so much about teen sexuality and exploration of sexuality. So is True Blood, so is the Vampire Diaries, all that kind of thing. It's like a way of explaining why your love interest might have a problem with being with you, which is the foundation of any kind of tension in a romance novel. Is we can't be together, but we want to be. Oh, it's because you're a vampire, and if we do get together, you're going to suck my blood. Oh, well, that's a big obstacle to overcome.
That is a turn off, okay? That's a real turn off.
So, yeah. And obviously, it's, it's got to be kept a secret, and it's dangerous, but it's exciting. And so, they kind of turned from being just super scary to kind of being Halloween comedy figures to being sexy young teen boys.
Why are you've explained it, but like, I will say this even though you've said this, vampires aren't sexy, right? They're going to kill you with their teeth. And also they're going to drink your blood, which is gross. Well, vampires aren't sexy.
I get it.
You think that's sexy? You really think that's sexy?
I understand where the connection can come from, right? So like a lot of the ones that are in culture at the moment, again, Twilight, True Blood, Vampire Diaries, all that kind of thing, it's almost like a nobility thing, which is that the vampire boy is like, you should stay away from me. I can't be with you because I'm a bad guy.
Yeah, but that's what cool guys do. I'm no good for you. I'm a bad guy.
Exactly. It's the same.
Yeah, I get it. Vampires are sexier than werewolves, who are gross, smelly dogs.
So what you're saying is you're Team Edward?
No way. Hang on. What? I'm just saying that vampires are. I guess
Team Edward.
They're not smelly dogs, right? No offense. But you're werewolves.
We'll revisit this in the future.
Also mummies, right? Because they're dead already, and they're wrapped up in the cloth. And also, what are the other classic villains? Ghosts. They're not real. They're not.
Ghosts are cool.
They're not real. You can't like.
Who you gonna call?
You can't. Yeah, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. You can't kiss a ghost. Well, Bill Murray in the original Ghostbusters had an encounter.
Dan Aykroyd.
So Dan Aykroyd. Yeah, they did meet the ghosts they did have ghost relations. It's complicated. I'm Team Edward. Is that what I am?
Yeah.
Vampires are sexy. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Vampires sexy, werewolves are not sexy, a Team Edward. Another interesting thing about vampires is things like the teeth thing, how that works,
right?
Whether or not they can fly, can they turn into bats? I like that they hung upside down in this one. I thought
that was
cool.
Fun. That was good.
What's interesting in this one is that they have sharpened bicuspids instead of sharpened incisors, which is interesting.
I thought they looked closer together than farther away.
Yeah, it's the second ones rather than the third one.
What's that about?
Okay, again, I'm sitting here saying I don't really know anything about this. I obviously do.
Yeah, says the friggin' vampire expert over here. I don't know about vampires, but let me tell you specifically about the teeth.
A whole
and also
thing.
The history. Nosferatu, too much information. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. The in nature, it's much more common for animals to have sharpened incisors rather than bicuspids, so it looks more weird to us. I think that's why they did it, because it's like, ooh, what's wrong with their teeth? Whereas if it's the incisors, it makes more sense because they're kind of sharp anyway.
It's like that thing where if you take somebody and you face and you flip it upside down and they're frowning, it looks fine, but if you flip it the right way, it's terrifying, right? Human beings' brains are you know that thing,
weird,
right? If you took my smile and you flipped it to a frown, right, upside down, flip my head upside down, I'll look fine to your human brain. But flip me right side up, horror face.
Draw a little pair of eyes and a little nose on your chin, and then you can talk and you're like,
exactly. Put a wig on my neck, and then I am like a puppet, your grandma, right? And I'm telling you about all the ins and outs of life, and also telling you to guard your neck from the vampires, and also, maybe you should be nicer to strangers, because that's what grandmas say. Is any of this going through?
It could be a vampire. You never know.
Or your next employer. Am I right?
Same thing.
Well, bosses are vampires. That's commentary on jobs. Hey.
Capitalism is bad.
I'm waking from my crib to check my Instagram notifications. What? We have no new followers? Come on. Follow us on Instagram at PlotTwistersPod. Also on Twitter and Facebook and probably YouTube. Also, I'm a vampire. Goodbye. Social media vampire.
I feel like, whilst this is a very silly film and I love it, maybe we could do the thing where we actually do try and make it a little bit better this time.
I am game.
Are you in a good space for that?
I'm
for
into
us to
it.
be serious for one flipping second of our lives?
Let me find my center. Yes, I found it. It's in the middle of my body. And actually, I'm ready to make this movie better, okay? Right off the bat, before you even say anything, let me tell you what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Get rid of the weird taxidermist grandpa, okay? Because I don't need that in a serious movie about vampires.
I liked it. You know,
Too bad I just removed him.
Okay, fine.
Veto power, he's gone. You know why? Because he made me think about maybe this movie's a funny movie. All I want to know is this. The brothers and their mom moved away because divorce to a new town. That town is filled with vampires. I don't care where they live. Didn't have to be the grandpa's house. He's an extra person that I don't need to know about.
Well, how about
unless he's a vampire himself.
Well, I was just going to say, could we merge the character of, the grandfather from Gilmore Girls? What was his name? The boyfriend of the one who was the one who was the head vampire in this.
Yes.
Can we merge his character?
That guy was
in
Gilmore Girls, really?
Yeah, he was the grandfather in Gilmore Girls.
All right, that's good to know. Okay. So yeah, all right. Grandpa's in, but he's a head vampire, and it makes it tough because they have to murder their grandpa.
Well, do they have to murder him?
Unless they want everyone to be a vampire. Do you not remember the mechanic of being a vampire? Kill the head vampire.
But what if they want?
What if everybody? What if it turns out being a vampire is actually a benefit?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What if the vampires win?
And here's the thing, right? Every single vampire movie you've seen says vampire equals bad. Vampire equals killing people. Vampire equals drinking blood. However, and I'm just going to say this, and I know this is a serious movie, so bear with me. Isn't the stuff that's in blood the same that's in Red Bull or whatever? Right? It's the same. It's vitamins and it's electrolytes. Yes?
I fully support you and I fully support your point. I will, however, just for posterity, add that in quite a lot of the things we've been talking about, they do end up as vampires. But that's fine.
No, that's fine.
It's fine. That's fine.
No. We talked about movies that we twisted that they weren't vampires and then they became vampires.
Sure.
In this twist, we're saying they're already vampires. Maybe we stick to the vampire thing. Right? Well, that's not our fault.
No, I mean in the sense that they're people who you said vampires are bad.
Yeah.
And most of the time they get healed, but that's not true.
Not
in most
here.
Vampire medias, quite often they turn into vampires, but that's fine. What I'm saying is, so we need to find the good character motivations. But I think what would be cool is if something like the lead kid, what was his name? I did not really do names in this film at all.
Michael?
Okay, Michael, yeah. I was thinking the younger brother, but he's too silly. Sam was his name. Michael.
Corey Haim.
How about this? He's kind of an outcast. I'm not thinking he's a nerd, but he's more of just a bit of nobody really gets him. And he's not really accepted. Maybe he's into really specific music or something that nobody else is really into.
He's into math rock. Nobody gets that.
Sure. And he just feels a bit awkward and uncomfortable and stuff all the time. and his brother is kind of the same character in the sense that he is a nerd kid and loves comics and stuff, and he makes friends with the comic book kids, because that was great. I love that. But what I'm saying is that the overall arc of this character could be, I don't feel accepted. I don't feel like I have my people. I don't feel like I have my unit.
Yep.
Well, until he becomes a vampire. And whilst to start with, it's a bad thing. And it's like, oh no, I'm a vampire. And Sam is like, in every comic book I've ever read, it's terrible. We need to drive a stake through your heart and all this kind of thing. But the gang of vampire friends are actually kind of cool. And they're like, you can be in our club now and you can have friends for the first time in your life.
Yeah, for the first time ever.
And Michael's like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. I have friends now.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking that, like, maybe they've moved from across the pond, right? And they've moved to California, but they're from England or whatever, right? You know, across the ocean. And I was thinking about how Michael might be feeling like he has no friends, he's alienated, and he wants to go back to where he felt belonging, which was England, where he had friends, right? But he can't go because he's a kid. Yeah. But he meets a bunch of cool vampire people who can fly. And the reason he wants to become a vampire is because he'd be able to fly. That's just an idea, right? It's one idea, but he meets these cool guys and he thinks, I want to fit in with you. But really he thinks, if you can make me like you, then I can fly home. And so he becomes a vampire because he can fly. But then he realizes that he has good friends here in Santa Carla, so he doesn't have to fly home. Yeah,
so like a big part of it is him gearing up to try and do that so he can go back. But then they're like, actually, you don't need to anymore.
My point is this: I didn't like.
This is your home now.
I didn't like that he was tricked into being a vampire. Okay, he thought he was drinking wine. It was actually blood. Spoiler alert: you're a vampire. I want Michael to choose to be a vampire, not be tricked into being a vampire, and to be.
Why did you not like it being tricked?
Because I don't like tricksters.
But we're like within the storytelling.
Because I think somebody should choose whether or not they live forever or they die a mortal life.
But I hear you.
Yeah, I hear you, but also.
But the thing is that he's got to learn what it is he needs, right? Because if he knows what he needs, then where's this development?
Here's what I saw.
Because then he's just making a series of good choices.
Yeah, but in this original movie, some dumb kid goes, "Oh, those guys are jerks." No, some guy goes, "I want to date this girl called Star," but then they're vampire friends, but I don't know their vampires say, "Come on with us," right? And then he goes, "I guess I hang with you bad kids." It was some dumb kid hanging with bad kids who went too far. The reason I'm upset about it is I've been a dumb kid hanging with bad kids that went too far, okay? But I didn't wake up a vampire, okay?
But you've got to make mistakes to learn.
But he's a vampire. He's the undead now.
And that's okay. He
has
friends.
But life is a journey until you're dead, and then the journey is over because you're dead, all right?
Not for him. Live forever.
And you and I are going to live forever, right? Forever young. I don't want to be a vampire. There are stakes, and then there's stakes that are too high, right?
And then there's the stakes you drive into your heart. You can't. Here's the thing: you can't write a film in which the main character doesn't have some kind of bad thing or mistake happen to them pretty early. If he chooses to do it, it either then needs to prove to be a bad decision that he learns from, or it needs to be, because the whole point of the trick is he made the stupid decision, which is to follow these guys and follow this woman Star and all this kind of thing, like, and then they're like, you should drink this, and he's like, okay. That's the bad decision right there, because and you could almost say that's like a metaphor for probably drugs, which is like, if a bunch of guys on motorbikes lead you into a cave and say you should take this, the answer is probably no.
right.
But if they're saying, would you like to be a vampire, and he goes, yeah, okay, then it needs to be that then pans out badly, or he doesn't make the choice. Do you see what I mean?
I do see what you mean. I guess I'm just thinking from my perspective, I would hate to be in a position where somebody offered me some cool wine and then I drank it. And then the next day they were like, oh, you know that wine? It was my blood. And now you're a vampire. And I'd be like, nobody told me that. I thought I was hanging with some cool guys, not becoming a member of the undead. That's what vampires are, right? The undead.
Yeah. Undead, yeah.
Forever, right? I guess.
Undead, also known as living.
Yeah. First of all, I get it. We're all undead, right? Until
we're
dead.
all undead.
Until we're dead. Don't be a pedant, right? That's my job. I feel a bit, maybe I'm emotionally charged by a very specific thing that is a tiny part of the movie when it's not the big picture, but I feel like he was ripped off.
Well, yeah.
I feel like in vampire movies, they're like, hey, I just suck your blood. You want to do one of two things. You're dead or you're a vampire, right? Not, hey, you're a cool guy, drink some wine, gotcha, vampire, right? Because the whole time he'd be around Kiefer Sutherland, if he became a vampire, be like, let's do it. We're vampires. Let's rip the roofs off cars and suck blood and stuff. But also, by the way, screw you, man. You know, I was just a regular guy and you turn me into a vampire. You didn't even give me a choice. If you said, do you want to be a vampire? I probably would have been like, I guess so. Give me a choice, cool. Kiefer.
I think that a big part of the vampire thing is that it's about seduction in one way or another, sometimes for sexy reasons,
mostly
but sometimes
for sexy reasons,
mostly for sexy reasons,
right?
But also sometimes for seducing you into a lifestyle that looks very glamorous and cool in a lot of ways, as in live forever, be beautiful, have superpowers of some kind.
Yeah,
but in fact, the price that you have to pay for that lifestyle is you are reliant on drinking blood and you need to kill people. So it's about, you have to pay, it's about be careful what you wish for. You have to pay a price to get a cool thing, which I think is a common storyline, and it's a thing that, you know, we come across a lot in our lives, I guess, which is like, yes, you can have the really nice expensive car, but you will have to make payments on it for the next 24 months or whatever.
There's no free lunch, right?
There's no free lunch.
Terms and conditions will apply to everything. You want to be cool, you want to have sexy times, you want to live forever, you have to be a vampire.
Yeah, you can't have everything. So I think, like, perhaps what we're saying about this specific point of, like, does he choose it or not? I think in order for the narrative to work, there needs to be some kind, like, you have to have a character arc. You have to have the character has to learn something or realize something, or, you know, and sometimes they realize they made a mistake that they can't fix. And that's a tragedy. And sometimes they can fix it, and then they're everything's fine in the end. And I think with this sort of thing, with the whole, do you take the golden ticket that is, you know, burned on the other side, because it's like you can have all these nice things but you also have a bad thing, for the story to work, most of the time the answer has to be yes. Obviously. Because otherwise there's no story,
because it wouldn't be a
blue
movie.
Pill, right?
Hey, do you want to be imagine the Matrix and he took the blue pill. Hey, stuff's
do you want to forget everything?
Right? Yes. Hey, I'm Lawrence Fishburne, right? Hey, Keanu, take the red pill. We got a movie, right? Take the blue pill. Back to accounting, I guess. And Keanu goes, oh, I'll take the blue pill. That's not a movie, okay?
Nope,
right?
Not a movie.
Kiefer Sutherland had to convince Michael to be a vampire. I get that it was through trickery. And in the version that we're going to make, I want it to be higher stakes. I want it to be higher energy. And I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm not a fan of blood, but, like, could we have more blood? Like, should we have it to be a bit more, like, in your, like, have you ever seen the interview with the vampire?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I love it.
That's a scary, friggin' awesome. That is a scary, sexy vampire movie. All right? That predated your Twilights by a long time. Okay?
Yeah.
This movie was The Goonies plus vampires, which sucks. Okay? It was great, and I loved it, and I liked the sexy sax guy, but all in all, it kind of sucked because it wasn't scary enough. It wasn't raw or bloody enough, even though they threw that one vampire, who, by the way, was Ted from Bill and Ted's. Okay? Or
Right.
Bill? He was one of the... He was
Bill and or Ted.
He was Bill and or Ted. He was one of the Wild Stallions, was also a vampire, right? But it just wasn't enough for me, right? So, make it scarier than I'm ready for it to be. That's my take.
I know I said I was gonna really have to think a lot about how much to talk about Phantom of the Opera. I do just want to bring it in one more time, which is that I think the Phantom of the Opera is basically a vampire movie, except they don't say he's a vampire, but he kind of is. Like, he's a ghost, but it's like
He's a ghost.
It's a vampire
didn't he get
movie, for sure.
in an explosion or something? Didn't something explode around him or some acid on his face? Why does he have the thing on his face? Because it was an explosion?
I'm gonna let you watch them. I'm gonna let you need to watch the movie. Tell me when you've watched it.
Did he get punched in the face real hard, and that's why he has to wear a mask? Was it?
Keep going. What are the other reasons why he has to wear a mask?
Was it an acid attack?
It's that he's quite experimental with his makeup styles, but is quite shy about it. So he only does half of his face.
Yeah, exactly.
With a really dramatic winged eyeliner. And,
hey, listen. When you're wearing a mask, right? Sometimes you go full face and cover it up, or you do half a face. So what you're saying is he did half a face and then put on a mask. Yes?
Exactly, yeah.
Did somebody slap him real hard so his face was pink? Is that what happened?
Your homework is to watch The Phantom of the Opera. That is all. Let me know when you've seen it. It'll be great. Anyway, until that time,
I'll try.
All there is left to do is to talk about how many bottles of wine mixed with a little bit of vampire blood out of 5 you would give this movie.
I'm sorry, everybody. I give this movie a 2. The end. 2. It's not that great. The end. I'm sorry. It's a 2.
It's interesting. I thought I was going to be lower than you, but I'm actually going to give it a 2.5. So apparently not. Yeah, I think it was a 2.5 for me. I think I appreciated a lot of the stuff about it, and I think it is fun. And
yeah, it was fun.
I love over the top camp things, but the it was just the character development thing for me. I'm a bore like that.
You like good scripts. You're not a bore. You appreciate evolution of character, which this movie did not have. It just had Kiefer Sutherland going, "I'm a vampire."
Yeah,
big deal.
But just be careful when you walk past the mirror tonight, because what you didn't know about one of the key things about vampirism is that it can be transferred via FaceTime and an internet connection. So you are a vampire now. Sorry, don't go out in the sun. Get a nice coffin.
What?
Sleep in at night. Any garlic in your house, get rid of that. Just so you know. But great news, you can fly now. So is that cool?
Pros and cons. I love garlic. And I do love looking at myself in the mirror, so I am devastated. On the other hand, flying is a cool thing. So absolutely. I'm actually pretty content. I'm fine with it. I'm into it. No big deal.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Plot Twisters.
Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if you have the time.
We'll see you next time.
I want to suck your blood. I'm a vampire.